Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josey. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josey. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josey, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is leveraging social media to grow your real estate investment business. If you want to expand your real estate investing reach, social media isn't just a distraction, it's your secret weapon. Whether you're looking for deals, partners, or just want to build your reputation, the right social presence can open doors you didn't even know existed. The best part, you don't have to be a tech whiz or even an influencer to make it work for you. Here are 5 actionable tips to make your social media strategy truly badass. Number 1, choose your platform with purpose. Don't try to be everywhere at once. Pick 1 or 2 platforms where your ideal audience hangs out. Maybe it's Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or even TikTok. Whatever you choose, go all in. Quality beats quantity every time. Number 2, show up consistently, even if it's imperfect. You don't need fancy videos or professional photos. Share your wins, your lessons, or even your mistakes. Consistency builds trust, and authenticity attracts real connections. Number 3, educate, don't just advertise. Give value by sharing quick tips, project updates, or behind-the-scenes looks at your deals. Teaching others is the fastest way to build authority and attract opportunities. Number 4, engage with your community. Don't just post and ghost. Comment on others' posts, answer questions, and celebrate other investors' wins. Social media is a two-way street. The more you give, the more you get back. And number 5, always include a call to action. Tell people what you want them to do next, whether it's sending you a DM, joining your mastermind, or checking out your latest deal. Make it easy for them to connect with you. So, RAIN Nation, remember, social media isn't about perfection, it's about connection. Use it to share your journey, build your network, and grow your business like the badass you are. Now get out there and let your story be seen and watch the opportunities roll in. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. Today's guest is the definition of multifaceted badassery. Gino Barbaro is a certified money coach, accomplished entrepreneur, and podcast host who has built a real estate empire with over 1,800 multifamily units and 350 million assets under management. He's a best-selling author of Happy Money, Happy Family, Happy Legacy, and Baby Money Soldiers. Gino is the co-founder of Barbaro 360, where he empowers families to create lasting legacies through faith, intentional living, and financial education. Gino's passion for helping others is matched only by his love for his family. He lives in St. Augustine, Florida with his wonderful wife, Julia, and their 6 children. It's my pleasure to have him on the show, so welcome, Gino Barbaro.
Jen, how are we doing this morning?
I am still sleeping, actually. And the audience is not hearing this, but I had to stop a couple times here because I'm hitting wrong buttons and everything. But Gino, you are such a gem. We started chatting before I even hit record, and I have been looking forward to this interview. So thank you so much for being here today. I really, truly appreciate it. So
thank you. And listen, I love the list that you just gave. Would you mind if I added one more on? You have
Please.
A 5.1. So to recap what you said, I love what you said. You need a platform with purpose. You need consistency. You need to educate, not just sell. It's not what you say, it's how you make them feel. You need to
Yes.
engage,
Yep.
and you need the CTA, you need to call to action. For me, 5.1 would be authenticity. You need to be
Mm.
your authentic self. You need to put purpose over popularity. And I don't think you should be able to fake it when you make it. I really think you should get on and you should be an expert. You shouldn't just be spouting nonsense. You should really learn your craft. Don't waste people's time. You know what I'm saying? Like if you want to be an influencer, be good at what you influence. But if you're really your authentic, true self, you come on, with your platform, you like to have fun, you love to push buttons, you love to engage. That's you. That's you being your authentic, true self. You're not faking it. And I think if you could add what you've said and then you add that 5.1 with being authentic, it will really help your platform. And that's what it comes down to real estate. The same thing. If you're going to be out there teaching real estate and you think you need to be buttoned up and you need to look slick, if that's not your brand and
Mm.
that's not who you are, don't fake it because it will come across as somebody who's trying to sell you something. People get that they'll understand it right away. So I think the authenticity and once again having purpose over popularity because once you hit your purpose and enough people see that purpose and you've influenced enough people, the popularity will come. It will take some time, but
Right.
it will ultimately come.
Absolutely. I wish I could echo that 1,000 times because there are so many gurus out there. And I mean, you're nailing it on the head. This is why I'm so excited for this interview because I have heard amazing things and how authentic you are and what you bring to the table. And by coaching with what intentional living, I just love that. So I want to get this party started. You have built an incredible portfolio over 1,800 multifamily units and 350 million assets is no small feat. So I want you to go back to the early days. What inspired you to get into multifamily real estate? And I kind of want to know like what those first steps look like.
It's a great question because I could go all the way back to when I opened the restaurant when I was 22 years old with the family.
Ooh, what type of restaurant?
Well, Gino, pizzeria, Italian. I mean, the stereotypes sometimes are true, right? My parents are both immigrants from Italy. They came here and I just grew up in the restaurant business. I was 8 years old going to work with my dad. That's where part of the values that I created was working hard, working for a small business. And I did that. Went to college, hated it, opened the restaurant, had it for about 15 years
That's
before
a
the great
tough
it,
business.
it's horrible.
Whew.
It was a great business back in the 90s and early 2000s before the internet started changing the playing field, before technology really took over the space. When my father passed away in '07, I had been working with him my whole adult life. And that really changed a lot of things for me. I started asking myself, am I living his dream or am I living my
Mm.
dream? Now, you compound that with '08, everything changed. The whole entire landscape of business, in my opinion, changed. I picked up a book from T. Harv Eker called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. And as I'm reading the book, I hate T. Harv even more and even more. But in the book, he's saying your fruits are in your roots. It's all about responsibility. And I was that victim. I was that person blaming everybody, blaming my dad's death, blaming that the
Mm.
business is not going well, the economy. And when I took that to heart, I'm like, I need to do something different. I've got 4 kids at the time. I'm not making enough money in this business. There are people out there who are making millions of dollars. What are they doing? And then I decided I want multifamily because I had bought a couple of smaller properties. I had bought mixed use. I had bought a mobile home park. They didn't work for me. So I'm like, I like multifamily because I like to deal with residents. I know it's a basic human need. I know it's going nowhere. And I decided to join a couple of mentorships. And in '09, I met my business partner, Jake. He was a pharmaceutical rep taking food out of the restaurant and delivering them to offices to sell vaccines and to sell
Wow.
drugs. So hence we became the pizza guy and the drug rep. And we cemented that relationship in 2011. He moves to Knoxville, Tennessee. And back then, only like 15 years ago, I didn't even know where Knoxville, Tennessee was. And I think most people in the New York area had no idea of how the Southeast was going to be completely transformed through demographics, through taxes, through cost of living. He moved to Knoxville. We made that our backyard. And I guess you want to say the rest is history, but it did take us 18 months to find that first deal. But that's how we started. It was really about a reflection of me having pain, trying to move away from that pain, trying to find something different. And I think people out there, if you're sort of uncomfortable and you're sitting there and like life is okay, you're really not going to make the step. You're either going to be in a lot of pain like I was or just trying to figure things out, or you've got to be living this amazing life and you want more.
Wow. Well, you started with a single family home, small multifamily. What did you originally start with?
Back in 2002, we bought a fourplex, my brother and I. It was
Okay.
literally a fourplex, but it was listed as a threeplex. And you want to go down that rabbit hole, but it was a good deal. It was our very first deal. I managed residence. It was next to the restaurant, so I used it as a storage shed. And it was great. I got my first taste, and I'm like, I like this business. My whole idea was let me buy a couple of more properties. I'll own the restaurant and I can have both. But unfortunately, in New York, where I lived, it was about 45 minutes north of the city. Properties didn't cash flow. I mean,
Uh,
rents weren't high enough,
right.
expenses, taxes, insurance. So I had to look elsewhere, unfortunately.
Right. But then, because owning a quad is way different from owning like a large
Absolutely.
commercial multifamily. So how did you do that transition?
Man, I wish, Jen, I could say it was nice and smooth and I dove right in and everything's great, but let me be my authentic self right now. It was effing painful. I mean, it was. I mean, like in 2005, I went out and I invested. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
My
I
shirt says
invested.
swearing helps for those who are listening.
Oh, dude, let me tell you, if I get PTSD every time I think of the story. And for anybody who's in real estate who has never lost money in real estate, hats off. I think I've only known one other person who's never lost money in a real estate deal, and that's my business partner Jake. And I always joke
Wow.
with him. I'm like, bro, it was life before Jake and then life after Jake. And I made all the mistakes before I met him. I bought the mobile home park without due diligence with a dirtbag partner. Then I bought a strip mall that was in a bad area in the wrong part of the market cycle. So I made those mistakes. And that's when I said to myself, what niche do I really want to focus on? I'm going all over the place. What do I like? And I came back to multifamily. And I'm like, okay, let me learn how to buy apartments because there's other people out there that own these things. What are they doing? And I think
Right.
the first thing that I realized was if you're going to get into multifamily, it's very hard to do it by yourself. Hence, that's why it's Jake and Gino because he has certain skills. He loves to do certain things. And I love to do certain things. But in the beginning, obviously, it's all hands on deck. We're both learning the business. We're both doing things together. But it also allowed us to buy more property and to buy more units when you're a partnership, when you're a team together. So for me, going from a fourplex to a crappy mobile home park deal to a strip center, realizing, wow, okay, I've lost a lot of money in these two transactions. And once again, Jen, like I said, if there wasn't the pain to try to progress, I may have just quit. I may have said, hey, you know what? I'm a loser. I don't know how to do this real estate thing. I'm going to quit. But I had just enough pain in my system and in my body to say, I need to figure this out. And I think if anybody has that desire or the discipline to look for that help, and I always tell people there's two ways to learn. You can either learn on the street or you can learn in the classroom.
Hmm.
I did a lot of learning on the street and a lot of things that I made mistakes on. I went right to the classroom. It cost me money there as well,
Yep.
but it really truly helped me in understanding how to look at this multifamily as a business. And that's the mistake I think that most investors make when they start out. They think they're buying deals. They think they're buying real estate. They're going to be a landlord. No, what you're buying is you're buying, whether it's a single family or a 300 unit apartment complex, you're buying a future stream of revenue. And you need to manage that future stream of revenue. And if you look at it from that perspective, everything changes. You're like, oh, how do I make more money in this business? Well, the more people you serve, the more problems you solve,
Ah,
the more money you make.
love that. So I just know a lot of my listeners would love to own over 1,800 units. And what are those first key steps that you had to do? I mean, I know you have a partner, and I do want to talk about partnerships because before we hit play, I have heard of Jake and Gino. So you guys have been around for a while. So I do want to dive into that. But what are your first steps for that? My listener who's sitting in traffic right now, driving to work, wanting to quit, and really wanting to get into this
Well, this is
beyond education.
Yeah, this is where you can't fake it till you make it, at least
Right.
in my opinion. I really learned the business. I really learned cap rates, due diligence, cash on cash returns. I really had a coach there. So when I started underwriting deals, I didn't quote unquote make those mistakes. Now, people have AI, and maybe you can use AI to be your quote unquote coach. But let me tell you, when I'm looking at an LOI and I'm afraid, and I've never done a deal before, and my coach has done 300 deals, well, it's really good to get that feedback. I think the second point is once you learn, don't go buy a deal unless you've got that knowledge and you've got that education and the experience of somebody else. go out and start talking to other people, because that's how I was able to scale. I'm sitting at the restaurant one day. I've got pizza sauce on my chef coat. I'm just pissed off. I'm sitting in the front, and in walks my current business partner, Mike. He's got these nice Bruno Maggi shoes. He's all slick back. He's a hedge fund dude, right? So he sits down next to me. He's getting takeout. So we start talking, and he starts talking about China and gold and oil and, oh, real estate. And I think he was surprised at the level of knowledge that I had, because he starts telling me, well, I'm buying these single family homes in New Canaan, Connecticut. I'm paying $2 million. I'm getting 10 grand a month. And I'm like, Mike, I just bought a deal for $625,000. I'm getting 13 grand a month in revenue. And I could just see his face go, wow, that doesn't make sense. And I said, would you be interested in the next, if we bought another deal, if you partner up with us? And the answer was yes. Let's continue to talk. And that's one of the things I think people are afraid of. They're afraid of going out networking. And listen, I'm the pizza guy. I'm the guy stuck in the back, washing dishes, hiding from people. So if I can do that, anybody can do that. You just need to be clear. And I saw the opportunity. I'm like, there's only one way that I can continue to buy more real estate, is if I can find somebody who has a stronger balance sheet than I do, who has an understanding of business, because he was and still is a hedge fund dude. He knows income over expenses. He knows how to run a business. He knows how to do budgeting at a really super high level. So not only was he a mentor to me, and he saw what we were doing, because remember, it's a value for value. I brought the value of him being able to do this, quote unquote, passively, because he had his full-time job. But I was also able to bring him the deals, and he was able to leverage his balance sheet, his net worth, and his experience. You put those two together, it's like putting gas in a fire. And it really, for me, accelerated my growth and Jake's growth. And would I be here right now? I don't know. I'm going to be honest. That's one of the pivotal conversations when I look back in my life, saying, wow, I got Mike on board, and the rest is history. 3 months later, we found a 36 unit. It was generating 10 grand a month. We paid $850,000 for this property. Back then, prices were different because rents were so low. Rents were $300 for one bedroom. Within 3 months, income was up to 16 grand a month. Remember, 850, 16 grand a month. He paid 2 million, 10 grand a month. He just saw the numbers. It just made total sense. 3 months after that, we find 136 units for $4.05 million, and we end up buying it. He was gracious enough to lend money to our LLC. We paid him an interest rate. Mm-hmm. And when we refied the property, he got all his money back before the partnership split up the rest. We even had to get a seller finance deal to the broker who was selling the property to us, because we didn't have the money for the down payment. We did everything we possibly could. I remember this, the broker took a $50,000 seller finance note. We were paying him like $300 a month. He loved it, because he's like, I don't need the 50 grand. When you refi, just pay me back. So it's one of those things where you really need to be creative early on, but you really need to have team members on your team. And I think for us, it's think big, but start small. You had asked me how. All the gurus out there will tell you, you got to go big, you got to scale up. My whole premise is I need to prove it to myself. I had already proved it to myself with the 4 unit. Then when we bought the 25 unit, I'm like, Jake and I can do this. Let's go for something a little bit bigger. The 25 became a 36. And then the 36 became 136. If we had gone straight to 136 units, we probably would have destroyed the deal and crapped out, because we wouldn't have the teams, we wouldn't have the experience. So for those of you out there, think big, start small. And the other thing I'd say is really pick one market. If you live in Raleigh, pick the Raleigh market. Learn how to underwrite and understand that market. And then if you can't find deals, start expanding your search. And then if you just can't find deals after 3 or 4 or 6 months and deal flow is slow, just go to pick another market.
So well said. And I have a key question here as we're going through this. What if we don't have a Mike in our life who's coming to have pickup at the restaurant, take out at the restaurant, excuse me. And, because I agree, you are out there networking with people, and there are those moments where you make those connections and you just click with strangers. But what if they don't have a Mike in their life? What's the best way for them to raise funds to start scaling their business?
That's a great question. And for me, early on, I always identified myself as the pizza guy. Once I sort of made that shift, and I'm like, wow, we've got 200 units now. I'm a multifamily investor. I want to get out of the restaurant. I saw the light at the end of the tunnel. I think for anybody that wants to raise capital, they need to really understand the business. They really need to have a framework. You really need to be able to explain it to an investor as if it's a 6-year-old. If I'm going to go pitch a deal to somebody, I'm going to say to the person, "Hey Jen, I've got this deal. We buy right, we finance right, we manage right. Let me tell you what that looks like. And oh, by the way, what are you looking at? Why are you wanting to invest in multifamily?" I think people, when they raise capital, it's all about them. I need to know what Jen is doing, and I need to get in front of as many Jens as possible. And I need to understand that it is a numbers game. So for you to start out, if you think, hey, you know what, I can't raise money, maybe do some smaller deals. And from the
Right.
smaller deals, you just start talking to friends and family. And it's really the irony is so incredible because when I started, I never told my mom that I had partnered with Jake because I had a couple of failures. She had always reminded me, the Italian mothers, Gino, you got to stay small, don't take any risks. And I was sick of hearing that. But she's just trying to protect me. But I'm like,
Right.
you know what? I need to do my thing. And I remember at 200 units, I go out, I sit down outside at the restaurant, and I'm like, Mom, in about 6 months, I'm leaving. And she was just floored. She goes, what do you mean? So this is coming from a lady who didn't want me to invest. And now she's like, when's your next deal? It's really weird how that
Yes.
happens. And it's going to happen to somebody listening to this. You do a 4 unit, then you do a 6 unit. All of a sudden, you've got 10 units. And that's a lot for the average person who has no idea about real estate. They'll start asking you questions. And you start posting, like you said, you gave a
Right. On
great little
social media.
framework.
Yep.
Yes, you start building a little investor database list. You start putting it out there. You start creating a meetup. You start going to events. You start going to seminars. These are all things that are really, really uncomfortable to me. You start joining platforms like Bigger Pockets. You start getting your name out there. You start seeing what other people are doing in the business. Because if you identify as a multifamily investor, you need to take those actions. You need to take the actions of sourcing deals and raising capital for deals. Those are the two things that every multifamily investor needs to do. And when you look at it from that perspective, once I started doing that, wow, everything changed for me because I'm not just the pizza guy. It's a great story, and you need a personal story to be able to raise
Right.
capital because people are going to say, well, why are you getting into multifamily? Well, for me, I could talk to them about tax benefits and this, but no, I want to really resonate with my audience. And I just going to say to them, I got out of it because I hated my job. I wanted something other than the rat race. Even though I had a small business, it felt to me as if the rat race was, I was dying in the rat race.
Right.
Multifamily allowed me to exit the rat race. And once you start talking to that and you use the word avatar before we hit the button with
Mhm.
the record button, who is my avatar? Well, anybody who's in a small business, anybody who's in a job they hate, anybody who wants to get their money out of Wall Street. And that's a big amount of people. So to become clear on who you're speaking to have a little bit of credibility before you start raising capital, I think goes a long way.
Huge. And, having partnerships with people who their forte is raising money, if you are an introvert or feel
Yes.
like you don't have that mindset to go out and do that. But then, because my husband, he's an accountant, I hate numbers. He is a freak
Uh-huh.
in the spreadsheets, if you know what I'm saying. And,
Yes.
but we balance each other so well because I'm the mouth and the looks
Yes.
clearly. But we have that great balance between the two of
Mm-hmm.
us. But we're
Mm-hmm.
also married. So, Gino, I want to get into partnerships because you said your Italian mother, saying that you had some failed partnerships and then you met Jake. How did that become? Because there's so many listeners out there who are like, I really want to take the leap. And you said you need to have the right people on your team. How do you have a successful partnership with someone to then start scaling businesses together? And actually, if you can also touch on why the other ones failed, that would also be helpful
Mm.
too.
I remember one of my mentors a couple of years ago taught me this phrase, and it's just stuck with me. And he called it values-based decision making. And I got to rip it off from Rick Sapio. And for me, looking back, it's unconsciously picking partners based upon your values. And most of us don't know what our values are. And when I look
Mm,
back at the failed relationships, well, Maserati Mike, I call him Maserati Mike. He drove into the parking lot with a nice gold Maserati. I'm like, dude, game on. Like, but when I look back at his values and my values, they were complete polar opposites. The guy didn't work hard. He just didn't run his properties well. He had no, as far as ethics, I don't think he was an ethical person because he basically created a syndication. It was a security because I'm a passive investor, but it wasn't billed as such. So the ethics aren't there. So our values were polar opposites. So for us, when things go bad, the fights start, money stops, relationship implodes. Conversely, when I met Jake, he was the only pharmaceutical rep that would come into the office. He'd have his calendar for the month. He would tell me, hey, on the 15th of the month, I'm going to the Bronx. The 18th of the month, I'm going to Peekskill. So he was a hard worker, diligent, family guy, long term, wanted multifamily for the long term, didn't care about any other asset classes. So our values really aligned well. And I think when you're going to create a partnership, you need to understand that it is a marriage. Now, you may do one or two deals and then say, time out, I'm done. Because what ends up happening is if a partner is older than another one, maybe the older partner doesn't want to continue to grow. Maybe that partner is just comfortable where he is. And the younger partner is like, well, I need to grow. That's fine. They can break it up. But I think what you need to do when you're starting a partnership, that values-based decision making, and also the expectation of what each partner brings to the table. And the last thing I'd say is when you're going into a partnership, you cannot make excuses. I have never heard in my entire life over the last 15 years my business partner say to me, I'm tired, I can't be at that meeting. I've never heard that. And conversely, I've never made that excuse to him. Because we are feeding each other's families. I'm not going to let him down, and he does not let me down. And I think if you take that route as a partner and you work together like that, I think ultimately you're going to be unstoppable. I mean, that's the reality. Set the expectations, but then work really, really hard and don't make any excuses.
I love that you said all that. And there are people who have great intentions getting into
Yes.
partnerships, and then it still goes south. I've been a coach for a handful of years now, and I've just seen so many where they were best friends growing up, and they said, oh, because we grew up in the 90s together, we could definitely be business partners. And it doesn't work because they are not setting those intentions and being, exactly that. Do you also have any type of written contract between the two of you for a partnership?
When we started, we really didn't. The only thing we did have is Jake started managing the properties. So he was the property manager. So he was getting a property management fee before the partnership was getting owner draws. So that was one of those things that was a little contentious because he's getting paid before the partnership is. And are we buying these deals because you're making more of a management fee, or are we buying these deals? And oh, by the way, are we overfixing these properties and because your management fee is based upon the income and the income is going up, but we're spending too much money? So we had to get clear on that. And I think the other thing when we're looking at it, every deal has an operating agreement. So every single property has the operating agreement, and things are laid out within the operating agreement. So every property has its own LLC, and that's really important. Every property has different ownerships. My brother actually started investing with us early on, so he was involved in that as well. So getting clear on that, and within the LLC, just set out the expectations. What's happening? Jake is managing these properties. I'm asset managing them. He's property managing them. Being clear on that is important. And being best friends, great. You can trust somebody. That's just not a qualification to go into business. What's your best friend? What can your best friend do? Have they ever owned a business? Have they ever bought property? Are they great at speaking? Do people like them? Can they raise money? What's their role on the team? Because the worst thing that can happen is two people get together. All of a sudden, you start making a ton of money. One of those people is not doing any work, but they're generating just as much capital as this person.
Right.
That's probably almost as bad, maybe worse than if the partnership just blows up and everybody loses money. So just be careful of that scenario happening as well.
Absolutely. And very, very well said. So before we hit record, we were talking about you had a coaching program, and I know someone who was in your coaching program, and I can't place who it is, but they always spoke so highly of Jake and Gino. But you have since become a certified money coach. What is that, and what does that mean? What services do you offer with being a certified money coach?
Bobby Mattis, is that the gentleman in Raleigh?
No, I don't know that name.
Yeah, because there's I have a bunch of students in North Carolina because North Carolina is a great market.
I'm telling you, I'm sure they were nearby.
Yeah.
Because anyway, when I was starting, but anyway, we will figure it out. I'll call you in a week and say it was this person. All right. So.
For me, Jen, I started the education platform in 2017. We just wrote a book, and multifamily was in its infancy. And then I created this program. We created the buy right, the manage right, the finance right. Our fulfillment was phenomenal. I mean, like literally, I was on weekly calls with the students. We had 5 in-person events a year. I mean,
Whew.
literally 5 different markets a year. We had monthly masterminds. I had our vendors. I was really engrossed within the business and within growing and helping. I mean, the students closed over 100,000 units in the last 10 years. They've raised over $800 million dollars. And I mean, the $5 billion dollars in assets that they closed. But what I noticed was some students were doing really well, and there were others that were struggling. And the ones that were struggling, they didn't have any more or any less money. I'm like, why? What's going on? What is holding them back? And why are these people succeeding? And when I left the Jake and Gino platform, I sold it about a year ago. I said, I want to take a deep dive. I want to get into this money thing. I Googled money coaching, and this lady, Deborah Price, pops up. She's had this platform for over 25 years, and I would call her the financial pioneer as far as finance and psychology. Now it's more of a thing, but years ago, people didn't
Right.
understand behavioral psychology and what it has to do with money. So when I started taking her course, it was so enlightening. You look back, one of the first calls that you have with a client is you do your money bio. You go back into your childhood. You start remembering all of those memories that you have. I like to call them money traumas. That's what
What do
they
you
are
think? Money grows on trees? That's what I heard all the time.
all the time.
Yeah.
So scarcity, right? And then if you
Yes.
want to do something, so we can go down that rabbit. I'll share a couple of stories of myself, but from the age of 5, I start creating this bio and I start seeing this thread through it, and you bring it to your present day. So what's great about the whole money coaching process, it's only a 4 core process. It's really 5 calls. There's a little quote unquote, what I would say, maybe a little bit of therapy going back into the past, diagnosing it, looking what's going on, checking out the patterns, the behaviors, the unconscious patterns that you have, and then seeing a lot of those patterns are really adopted from your family. You don't want to be your mom. Okay. What people typically do is they don't act like their mother, or what they do is they do the opposite of what their mother or their father does. So you're creating these behaviors around money, and they're unconscious. Do you even want to be doing them? You don't even know you're doing them. And I was so guilty of this, right? I was such a great saver because my mom she was an immigrant. She was a saver. She didn't want to risk anything. And that's how I was raised in the restaurant. I was very, very risk averse. Well, in '08, everything changes. It doesn't
Right.
matter whether you're saving, you're not making any money. So for me, looking back, checking my money bio, and then taking it to the present, start going through those patterns, those behaviors. The ones that are positive are great. You need to work on the ones that are negative, and that's what you end up doing. And then from there, you start looking at any behaviors that you want to work on. You start looking at your life inventory, the things that you're really good at. And ultimately, what you want to end up doing is you want to end up doing things that really light you up, things that you really enjoy. And I think that's the beautiful journey about it. You start in the past, you get to the present, and let's go towards the future. Because as a money coach, as a life coach, I should say, life coaching is phenomenal. It literally changed my life. But the problem with life coaching is they don't go back into the past enough. They're just focused on, okay, what are your goals? Let's buy a property next year. Well, hold on. Is that what you really want to do? Is that what your intentions are? Are you going to succeed? Do you have certain patterns or behaviors or limiting beliefs that are going to hold you back? And for me, it did for a while because my mom was like, you know what? We can't take a risk. We got to stay small. I had one restaurant for 20 something years. And then within, like I said, 5 years, I've got 1,500 apartment units. Something clicked in my mind. And I all of a sudden realized that those limiting behaviors that I had were really holding me back unconsciously. And I credit that to life coaching. But if you can blend going back, coming into the present, and then going towards the future and really setting goals based on what your values are and based on what objectives you are and creating them from a conscious place, not an unconscious place. It's so empowering doing it that way.
As you're going through these limiting beliefs, one that was very triggering for me was I was raised that all rich people are
Ah,
dishonest,
mm-hmm.
and they didn't reach their millions by anything that was positive, that they stole basically to
Yes.
get to be rich. And that was just a huge mindset shift for me as well. And
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so as you're rattling those off, but this
So
is
Jennifer,
so
that's
important. Yeah.
important. That's important. If you extrapolate that out, and somebody
Yep.
listening to this, you may be right. I'm not saying you're right or you're wrong, but if you truly believe that rich people are evil, they steal stuff, and then when all of a sudden you come across a deal and you're like, this may be a life-changing deal for me, I may become rich from this deal, what are the odds that you're going to pull the trigger and become rich yourself? They're slim to none
Right.
because subconsciously, unconsciously, as a child, you were taught that they were bad and they were evil. So you're actually repelling that. That's
Right.
really important to understand. Don't go and learn about multifamily because you're not going to do a deal because you're programmed to think that money is evil, rich people are evil. If you become one of them, you become evil. What you did is you realized that it became conscious. You're like, well, is that true? Is that true? In some parts it's true, but I know a lot of people who are poor who are just as evil as people who are rich. Money's the symptom. Money's a result. That's all it is. Money amplifies.
That's
What
that's exactly the word I just wrote down was amplify, because that's what was the switch for me. Because
Mhm.
Gino, you and I, we are good people, aren't we? And so
I would tend to think so.
I,
Yes.
in the few minutes that we have been conversing here, I can just tell you have a heart of gold. And for me, I learned that money just amplifies my beliefs. So if I and even going back to what you're saying, when you're buying these multifamilies, you are providing housing for these people. You are doing a service for the community. And it's actually, you can continue to grow that because you have a good heart. So we could go off on a totally tangent in this whole arena of discussing this, but just kind of triggered some childhood memories as you were going through that.
And
And
that's
I think it,
great, isn't it? Isn't it
yes,
great to reflect on it? I'll say one more thing, Jen, about
please.
this. And I heard this quote and it really hit me and it really made me feel good because the gentleman told me money does not corrupt, it reveals. And that was
Oof.
like, oh, wow, okay. You have the opportunity. It just amplifies more of who you are. If you're a
Right.
great person, you're a charitable person, you want to help people out. I mean, listen, that's what money's allowed me to do. I started this coaching business. I'm not making any money doing these coaching business. I'm not making money being on these podcasts, but money's allowed me to do that, to be able to amplify more of what I want. And I love to coach. I love to be on shows. I love to share my story. I love to help other people. I want to change the world one person at a time. If I was broke and we're living paycheck to paycheck, I can't do that. Money has allowed me to do that. So it
Right.
actually, like I said, it doesn't corrupt. It just reveals a
Right.
person. So when you're out there, just think of that. What kind of person are you? Is it going to corrupt you? I don't think so. It's going to reveal your true
Mm.
intentions.
We can just end this podcast right there because that was so perfect, Gino. Thank
Mhm.
you for sharing that. But before we go to the second part of the podcast here, there is one. I have all these questions that the Chat GPT wrote up for me, but I do want, we just went totally different direction. But there's one question here about your 3-step framework for
Hmm.
success. So can you walk us through what those steps are for the listeners and how it applies to their, or maybe your own investing journey?
About 10 years ago, Jake was he was sitting in his backyard. There's a wheelbarrow there. He's a fanatic with chainsaws and landscaping. And he sees this his wheelbarrow tipped over. And he's like, wow, okay, 3 legs. There's 2 legs in the back and a wheel. He's like, that's what multifamily is. It's a 3-step framework. It's buy right, finance right. Those are the 2 back legs. If you get those 2 legs and they're fixed and you're done right, okay, it's pretty stable. The wheel is the manage right portion of the framework. That's in constant motion. And as we started figuring it out and putting it all together, and as the years went on, I'm like, you're buying a single family home, you're buying a business. You need to actually execute on buying the asset properly, financing it properly,
Mhm.
and managing it properly. Now, if you look back over the last 3 or 4 years, where was the big hole in multifamily? It was all about the finance right. People were buying short term bridge debt. Financing was a little wobbly, and now you see what happens. Boom. And the other portion, the manage right, people weren't operating these assets, they were buying them and flipping them. Well, when you don't operate your business, it will catch up to you sooner or later. The market cycle is great when you're buying these assets and you're able to flip them and get into the next deal, great. But when the music stops and you have this asset and you're not managing this asset properly, you're going to have problems. So if you can look at, I guess, investing in any asset, buying a business, if you can look at it from that lens of trying to buy it, and buying means setting up parameters, looking at markets, what your rates of return are, what your buy criteria is. Financing is the same thing. Are you using an SBA loan to buy a business? Are you using seller financing? Is it a community bank? Is it a credit union? Is it short term? Is it long term? What's your exit strategy? Understanding all that part of the component of the finance, right? And unfortunately, the manage, right, we could speak on that for hours and hours, but you need to have some type of system or framework. You can be the I'm a guy, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that when you have 3 or 4 properties. But after that, AMA gets burned out, and AMA needs to
Right.
start implementing some type of systems in the business.
What a great concept. And I'm glad I snuck that question in here because I
Mhm.
do want to get to the second part of the podcast. But how do people find you if they want a money coach?
Oh, great question. Just go to barbaro360.com. Barbaro. It's my last name, 360.com.
Perfect. Very easy. So, gosh, there's so many other questions on here. Let me see here because this is a good one. You are a best-selling author and a family man with 6 kids. How do you balance that life? 6 kids, by the way. Goodness gracious.
It was hard back in 2008. I mean, because I had the restaurant, I started going to coaching and I started mentoring. And then I started going to life coaching school. I'm working at the restaurant full time, literally also homeschooling the kids. And yeah, so yeah, the kids are homeschooled, so they're always
Where were you
home.
living at this point?
I was living in New York,
Okay.
and it was hard. And what I once again, it came down to my values. I think unconsciously, I had to give up a lot. I couldn't go out and watch football on Sundays for 7 hours. I couldn't go play golf with my buddies. I couldn't go out and drink. So I had to really focus on my family, and it was really important to me. And I knew if I didn't take the time and dedicate the time, that I wouldn't be here right now where I am. So for those few years, it was schooling the kids in the morning, going to work at the restaurant. 2 o'clock, lunchtime came, sat down for a couple hours and did the real estate. 5 o'clock, dinner service, got home at 9, hung out with the kids, then went to bed. And then as I started exiting the restaurant, and I always brought the kids to work. So the kids were always involved at the restaurant. They always came to eat with me there. On my days off, I had Mondays and Thursdays off, which was great because I had to work on the weekends, but I had off during the week so I could spend
Nice.
time with them during the week. And then when the restaurant we sold, I started Jake and Gino. They started coming to the events with me. So I included them in the business. And even now to this day, the 3 older kids have their own businesses. I've got monthly calls with the bookkeeper. I'm on top of them. And I'm actually going to do a little lesson today afterwards on, 2 of the kids who are still home doing school. I'm going to be teaching them about money. I'm going to do T12s. I'm going to be doing profit loss statements, statement of cash returns. So for me, it's really trying to include them in the business, trying to include them in what I love. And I guess not doing things that a lot of people do. Like I said, I don't watch football. I don't watch sports. To me, I did when I was younger. I just needed to cut back on the things that I know is taking time away from me, from the family. So we have choices in life. We have to make certain choices. And I think the choices that I made allowed me to spend more time with the family.
I think that is wonderful. And there is a saying that a coach told me, and I hope I can get this right, but it's entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so you can
Yes.
live the rest of your life like most people can't. And
Yes.
I think you found a great way to mesh family together with the business and educate them on site. I mean, that's a great education right there alone. So I
Yeah.
just love all of that. And I'm sure there was 1,000 other great questions to ask you here, but I want to go to the second part of the podcast, which is what makes Gino a badass, which you are. And I use the acronym BADASS. And the first letter is B for book. What is a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
I've read so many books. Wow.
You've
For
rattled off
me,
some good ones. Yes.
for me, I just T. Harv Eker's Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. It's an easy book to read, simple. You'll get pissed off at him. You'll think he's a jerk, but then when you come down to the realization, you read it again, you're like, dude made sense. He's right.
That's like,
Just
that's how I feel about Grant Cardone. Sorry, Grant Cardone, but I want to be like, he's such a jerk. But man, the 10X rule, that definitely
yes.
makes a lot of sense. So yes, agreed.
Mhm.
All right. The first A in badass is for advice. You've given us excellent advice, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Wow, that is a great question. I mean, there's so much advice. The advice that I would give to somebody that I received is just become clear on what you want, not what you don't want. Because when I was back at the restaurant, I always said, I don't want to be here. Well, great, you don't want to be here, but where do you want to be? Where do you see yourself? You have to get clear. We don't lack motivation, we lack clarity, and we're not clear and we're fumbling around, we'll never get motivated. The motivation won't be there. So try to seek the clarity. And if that's hiring a life coach, having that person ask you some great questions on where you want to go, that really helped me out.
I also want to add that your subconscious mind, when you're saying, I don't want to be here, don't, if they keep hearing your
Hmm.
subconscious, that's, I loved how you flipped that and you want to focus on the positive where you do want to be, not where you don't want to be. So
Hmm.
excellent. Very good. All right. The D in badass is for drive. What drives you to be successful?
uh, you know, Going back in my money bio, understanding when I was 8 years old, coming home from work with my dad, worked 8 hours, gave me $2 in front of my whole family, and said, "Hey, hard work pays off." It just became ingrained to me at a young age. That was just hard work was came second nature to me, and that was part of my DNA. And I grew up with it. Getting into the restaurant, I thought that's what everyone did. And then when I got into real estate, and people are complaining that they're working hard, I'm like, guys, this is not hard work. This is actually, it's a different kind of work. I'm not taking it away, but yeah, for me, I mean, go back into your childhood, see, that's when your values are formed, when you're 10, 11, 12, 13 years old. And that for me, fortunately, I had two great parents.
Very nice. All right. The second A in badass is for aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So, what is a goal you are currently working on?
Starting a new podcast with my wife. And
Ooh.
yeah, we have one already. It's called the Julie and Gino Show. But we want to do one on money and marriage. That's what we want to do. We want to do
Mm.
one on just having conversations around the dinner table and just talking about money, seeing where Julia came from when she was a young girl, about how they talked about money and how Gino came from it. And you could see how different we were. And then, oh, by the way, no wonder why we always fought about money, because we had two different ways of looking at it. And I would love to have couples listen in to the struggles that we had, and hopefully we can influence them to start having the conversation about money in their home.
Well, Vance and I need to be on that, my husband and I, because that is a big, two totally
Mhm.
different backgrounds as far as being raised, and
Yes.
financial legacy that we want to leave. So,
Mhm.
but let's talk real quick though about your podcast. So, did you have other ones? Because you've been doing podcasting for what, 10 years now,
Yeah, we've got
which is
one
so rare.
called the Jake and Gino Show. Then I have my wife's show, which is called the Julie and Gino Podcast. We've been doing that since 2019. Got some great guests on. Every couple of weeks we launch a show. And then I just started a show with my son about 4 or 5 months ago, called the Happy Money Podcast, because I wanted to be able to balance what I'm saying as an adult, but I wanted a younger person's take on it. He's 23 years old. He's invested in a bunch of my deals. I want to have people listening in and seeing how we may have some similar mindsets, but he looks at money and he looks at work in a different vein than I do. So we called it the Happy Money Podcast because of the book that I wrote. But I love being on the show with him.
That is awesome. And I will have to definitely start subscribing because it has been so fun chatting with you. And I can just see how they would be so amazing. To keep going here through badass, the first S in badass is for systems. What
Mm.
systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
There's so many systems. What I would say is the biggest one that we have is what we call our cadence of accountability, as far as
Ooh,
having our weekly
say
goal,
that again. Cadence
cadence of
of
accountability. Yeah.
accountability. I
And,
love
and
that.
and think about it. It's for us, it's our weekly calls, our daily huddles, our quarterly priority meetings. Having a rhythm in your business is so important, because when it's just Jake and Gino, I get on the call, talk to Jake, great. But when you start hiring people and you start scaling up, you have those systems. And it may be, hey, in my system, cadence of accountability, I need to call two brokers a week to be able to source deals, or I need to talk to three investors a week. That's a rhythm. Setting up rhythms within your business, and not just winging it is what a lot of people do. People focus on the goals, which is the result. You need to focus on the system or the process to get you
Process.
to those goals. And if you don't know what your goals are, how are you going to be able to set up the process? So that's the important thing. So for us, it really is about processes, and it really is part of that cadence of accountability.
I love that. And I love that term, cadence of accountability. My husband and I, we had a coach us to do this, and we have been having weekly meetings every Sunday, and by meetings it's really, we fill out a spreadsheet. He's literally in his office, I'm in my office, but we can see that we're both online. But just when you share a toothbrush holder with your business partner, you can assume that you all know what's going on in the business. You cannot. You have to put it in writing. You have to touch base on it. I can assume he knows that I'm going today to fix the lighting of the new build. I'm the what is it called? The low voltage lighting in the yard. I love doing that, designing it. But when they put in the electric trench, whatever, they cut my wire. So I got to go over there today. But I had to let him know what's going on. This is what I had planned, it's on my to-do list for the week. Things like that was just very basic, but, celebrating wins. And at the end of them, the last cell in the spreadsheet is, we call it our Bravo boost. And you have to say something nice about the other person in the business-wise. So, because then we turn that off, and then we're back to being a married couple. But it's it's one of those things where, you can be so pissed off while you're filling it out and you're mad at them. And then you have to get to the Bravo boost, and just that being grateful for your other person has been a huge help for us. So Gino, I could talk to you all day, but the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to you?
That's another great question. For me, it's morphed over the years, right? And it continues to evolve. What I think success to me now means is, if I'm being completely honest, is doing something that I really love, something that I really enjoy, something where I can go out and help others. That's where true success is. Getting an email from somebody saying, hey, I closed the deal, or hey, thank you for going over this bio with me. I never knew I had so many issues going on. So that's a success. Years ago, it would have been closing a deal, becoming financially free. But as you start evolving, I think success ultimately, and that's why I think I really didn't like the restaurant. When I really stop and think about it, it's not that I didn't like it. I just didn't feel as if I was invigorated. I didn't feel as if I was creating enough impact. I didn't feel as if I had some kind of hope long term. And I think that's, for me, is really having that success, saying to myself, am I doing what I love? Am I impacting others? And am I seeing growth in my life? That's what success means to me.
Well, what a great way to end this podcast. Gino, this has been fabulous. Once again, how can the listeners find you if they need a money coach? What else do you offer? I mean, you have your books. I'm sure people are going to dig in and want to learn more. What else? And you have your podcasts. How do the listeners find you?
Great question. Just go to barbaro360.com. You'll see, be able to schedule a call. You will see our books. We're going to start doing workshops. I'm doing coaching one-on-one right now. I just love the model. I love the money coaching model. And I think for anybody out there, money is one of the last taboo subjects that we have in society. We can talk about a lot of other things, almost any other topic, but once you bring up the word money, you can just feel the energy being sucked out of the room. You can just feel it. And it shouldn't be that way.
No.
Really, it shouldn't be that way. So for anybody that wants to learn more, just go to barbaro360.com.
Well, you are fabulous, Gino. Thank you so much for being here. I was so looking forward to this interview, and it did not disappoint. You are wonderful. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Jen. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And that is all. Thank you for listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josey by visiting therealjenjosey.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.